Welcome to Around the Kit, Drum Talk Radio. Drum Talk with a heartbeat. Around the Kit is an exclusive live drum talk radio show where each and every week our number one goal is to bring you the best in the drumming industry. Our show contains world-class drummers, educators, speakers, drum techs, and some of the best local up-and-coming talent. At Around the Kit, our dialogue has always been about passion, integrity, honesty, growth, and when it comes right down to it, hitting things with sticks. Come visit us at aroundthekit.net and listen live every Sunday night from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Blog Talk Radio, where you can join the conversation with your host, Joe Gansis, at 646-787-8027. Around the Kit. Drum talk with a heartbeat.
Hey guys, what's going on? And welcome back to another installment of Around the Kit with Joe Gansis. I'm your host, Joe Gansis, and in this video, we'll be taking a trip down memory lane with some pictures and audio clips of some of our best interviews to date. We hope you enjoy this video.
Absolutely. Roy, I can't thank you for this time. I got one last question. Let's go back to that young boy in Emporia, Kansas. That young boy, what would he say to an 80-year-old Roy Burns now? What would he say to you now?
Pretty good, kid.
I think you did better than pretty good, Roy. We love you. Just great stuff. Guys, okay. Aquarium Drumheads, just check out everything at Aquarium Accessories. Roy, at the end of my interview, I can't thank you enough. I asked my guests one question, and it's an honest answer. If you could just answer honestly, it helps me out with every show. Roy Burns, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this interview?
They're all a 10 for me. Because I enjoyed them, and they were sincere questions, and you gave me time to answer them, and you didn't rush me through it, and you're appreciative, and honestly, you went into it with some real thought, because the questions were very good and well organized, and you sound like you're a fun guy.
Great stuff, brother. And my last question, I can't thank you enough, brother. You're such a gentleman to me, and I thank you always. The last word is the word destiny. We all have a destiny in life, whether we know it or not. I really think that our destiny is already written out for us. I believe that in some plan, but we just haven't achieved it yet. What is Rich Redmond's total destiny, do you think, in life?
Wow, that's an amazing question. I think my purpose in life is to affect people in a positive way. So ultimately we help people, and helping people could be through the dramatic arts, it could be through the musical arts, it could be in having my message, my crash, which is why I developed this crash course of success. In that messaging, it's powerful enough that people come away from that hour and they go, wow, that's some really quality messaging and some really fun takeaways that I can take, and I can talk to my kids about that, or I can talk to my boss about that, or, ultimately I think it's about, whether I'm playing drums, for an artist like Jason Aldean, it's like ultimately I'm making myself happy because I'm in my calling and it makes me happy. And I send that positive energy out to the world, and then the people that are at the show, they're escaping from their daily problems and their bills and their family life or anything that they're going through. And so the entertainer has a great responsibility. We really do to provide escapism for people. It's we need doctors and lawyers, and we need the wonderful people in the U.S. military, and we need all those people for our society to function. But I'm just very, very grateful that I'm a musician, I'm a creative person, and I hope I can make a difference, doing those things,
Great stuff, brother. We've been talking back and forth. We both share each other's stuff on our web pages, and I can't thank you enough, brother. Just tremendous stuff. I could talk to you for hours, and but just great, awesome stuff. I can't thank you enough. My last question is this: I ask all my guests the same question, and it's an honest answer. Whatever you give me, it's good. Michael Olbrecht, on a scale of 1 to 10, brother, how would you rate this interview, honestly?
It's a 10, Joe. You are an absolutely phenomenal interviewer. Your show is extraordinary, and you deserve all of the success that you are seeing right now. So it's an absolute privilege for me to have the opportunity to be on your show, and I can't thank you enough because I don't get a lot of opportunities to talk about those types of topics. So your questions were absolutely great.
Yeah, it's a great story. All the stuff he did with Herbie Hancock. And I got to tell you this, Mike, because, we hear so many great drum songs. We hear Neil Peart, Tom Sawyer, the middle part. We hear so many stuffs with different drum parts. But I got to be honest with you, and it gives me goosebumps. 42 years ago, this track called Actual Proof. It is one of the greatest drum songs I've ever heard in my life, and I just want to applaud you. Just a great job. I can listen to it all day. It's so in the pocket, in your face, and it's drums. It is drums. My question to you is: Actual Proof Mike Clark's Mona Lisa?
Well, I have many. That's a great question, Joe. Well, first of all, thanks for all the love on Actual Proof. I appreciate that. That's real. Well, yeah, it is. Now, but it's kind of weird for me because, Herbie's records sold 1 million, and my jazz records, where I feel I play much better than that, more drums, more music, more information, more roots, more everything, sell about 3,000 a pop. So
right.
In that way, it has become my Mona Lisa. But now, on the other hand, I'm not begrudging that because on the other tracks on that record, Thrust, they were, as far as the drum parts, they were fairly pedestrian. People were interested in making money, and they were saying, don't play.
Playing with these great and sometimes legendary artists, are you always Donald Barrett all the time?
Yeah, man. I'm always Donald Barrett, man. I want to just not to segue, but I want to tell you that interview with Dean Casanova was probably one of the dopest interviews I've ever heard. It was just like every person needs to hear that, not just a drummer. It just everybody needs to hear that, man. I think in life, and there's always a facade, that no matter what gigs you play, there's always a facade that you're doing all right and you're on top of the world, and things aren't, that you're not struggling with things. And I just feel like for me, I've always been me, but I still had to go through things as well.
Johnny Rabb, I can't tell you, brother, how this has been for me, this 45 minutes. Just great
Thanks.
stuff. You're a gentleman, and all my guests were right. You had to get Johnny. You're a great guest, brother, and I can't thank you so much for coming on my show and just instilling some of your knowledge with me and my guests. Johnny, at the end of my interviews, brother, I ask my guests one question, and I think you're a man of honesty like myself. I need an honest answer. I ask all my guests this. Okay. Johnny, on a scale of 1 to 10, brother, rate this interview.
Amanda, 9 to 10, totally honestly, because, and if not a 10, that's great. I say that because I've done a lot of other cool podcasts and interviews, but it was really cool to hear some of the questions that you asked about, like sort of the teaching and the, doing the research of the names, and it's always interesting to me to do interviews because everyone's different. This is obviously rated right up there with the ones I've done. So great, it's awesome. Love you.
At the end of my interviews, I ask all my guests the same one question, and it's an honest answer. You tell me what you think, and I like to get my guests' feedback. Ben Caesar, on a scale of 1 to 10, brother, how would you rate this interview, honestly?
Oh, really? I'm going to say 10. I'm basing that on your performance, though, not mine. Okay. If I put my performance in, I might take it down to an 8 or 9, just because I don't feel like my thoughts are firing the way they normally do, and it could be because it's early, it's in the morning. But as far as you've done your research, dude. That's amazing. The fact that you mentioned Dylan Altman and you knew Jack's Guitar Bar and shit like no, I've never done an interview where they were so well prepared.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you for your kind words, man.
That goes to 10 level, and then your questions are great. Your questions are great. It's not like, hey, bro, what kind of bottom heads do you use? You know, or your questions are deep and meaningful. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I couldn't give it a better rating.
Kathy, when I end my interviews, I ask my guests one question, and the question is that I don't dispute it. Kathy, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate this interview honestly.
I would, it's funny that you asked that question because I was going to say this to you if you hadn't said it. I was going to say you really do your homework, and this is probably the best interview of questions I've ever done.
Thank you for so many years, Jeff. It's just, I don't consider you a role model or my hero. I think that's for different people. I don't know, like my father who's passed on, he was my role model, but something you've done to me will always be with me, and I can't thank you enough, Jeff Tate.
Oh, my pleasure, Joe. Good interview. And when I say a solid 8, I mean that from my participation in it, not yours. You're great at this. You ask wonderful questions, and it's very refreshing, actually, because a lot of interviews are kind of like reading the questions off a list, kind of thing, where it's not like a conversation. It's just more of a question and answer thing. Like they could have just sent it to me in the mail, And this is more like a conversation, so that's always good.
Awesome stuff, brother. Guys, go to queensryche.com. Check out everything. Scott, it's been a pleasure, man. I hope one day we get a chance to meet, or maybe even next year we could do this again. I wish you all the best, brother. You're very special in my life as far as drumming, and I will continue to follow your drumming and musical journey in life, brother.
Wilson, that's all good, Joe. And when we do this again, I'm going to interview you.
My last question is this. I asked all my main guests, on a scale of 1 to 10, brother, how would you rate this interview honestly?
Oh, I was just about to say, when you said it was great doing the interview, this is one of the most prepared and really great questions. And also, you really listen after you ask a question. And sometimes people tend to interrupt a lot. This was a 10, Joe. By far, this is a 10.
Kenny, talk to me about something. I know you're passionate, and it's part of the drum set, the 15-inch hi-hat, and why you love it so much.
Wow, you took your homework. Well, I've always loved the 14-inch new beat hi-hats. I most of the time use 15s now, but I love the 14s. Those are the two most perfect hi-hats made. The Zildjian new beat hi-hats, because they're so musical. The reason why I use the 15s a lot is because in most cases the microphones that are around my kit tend to pick up, if you dial them in on your toms and the overheads, they tend to pick up the brightness of the cymbals. But when I went to the 15s, they were a little bit lower in frequency, and they blend into the drum kit better.
I wanted to talk to you about your parents. You brought them up briefly, Jack and Helen. What kind of values did they set around the dinner table? And did those values help you to become the man you are today?
Wow, that's a great question. My mother was from the South, from North Carolina, Durham to be specific, and her father would not allow us to even speak at the table unless we were given the permission to speak. So, in other words, you respect your parents right out of the gates. On the northern side with my father, they all grew up out of the Depression and had to basically, support themselves or, use the United States, the GI Bill, to get further. And he had, busted his hump and,
went to Duke University, and then went to the University of Iowa, and then eventually got his doctorate at the Illinois College of Optometry. So he was incredibly disciplined, and I mean, he did things like help build the airport in Creston, Iowa. He was an amateur radio operator, so he helped install the civil defense system because we were in Tornado Alley. So I grew up with that, all that, you know. A lot of people don't know this. Him being an amateur radio operator as a hobby, he thrust down my throat Morse code, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I go, get me the F away from this shit.
Rod Morgenstein, I cannot thank you enough, brother. Before I forget, I got to thank the great Mike Vanderhoel for getting us together. Mike is a great drummer, and he put us together, so I thank Mike Vanderhoel. Rod, at the end of my interviews, I ask my guests one question, and an honest answer is all that I ask. Rod, on a scale of 1 to 10, brother, rate this interview honestly.
On a scale of 1 to 10, in all honesty, I can't imagine it being any better than it was. So I have to give it a 10. You sound like a really lovely human being. You ask really good questions, and there was nothing dumb about it, you know. So
I like that. There was nothing dumb about it. That's good. Thanks, brother.
It was dumb free.
We hope you enjoyed this video. You could always check out everything we do at aroundthekit.net. And our live show every Sunday night from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time on AroundTheKit.net.